Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 6 of X Factor From the Ashes, written by Mark Russell. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. So with that said, issue number 6 opens up right where the last issue left off, at Nevermore Secret Military Base. And as you may have guessed, the general was pissed off at Frenzy for the recent turn of events. And when the general ordered Frenzy to explain what just happened, Frenzy proudly stated that first the general let a prisoner conduct their escape by using a smart fridge, and then her base was captured while she was working on her social media presence. And then due to no fault of her own, the general forces were able to somehow manage to capture the entire leadership of X-Term. And the only way they were able to capture the leader of X-Term was by Frenzy giving their position over to the mutant underground, which is something the general considered having Frenzy shot for. Now this didn't really faze Frenzy at all, because due to her actions most of them survived. So while they were having their conversation, Darkstar threatened to give them a fast death if they just let her go, so in an attempt to get free, she tried to summon the Dark Force energy. But that was when the general told her to save her breath because her cell is lined with a quantum entanglement field that blocked the use of her powers. So with Darkstar defeated, the general continued to direct her frustration towards Frenzy and even brought up the idea of court-martialing her. But before the general could act hastily, the X-Factor's liaison leaked footage of the battle to the public, and within no time at all, the general started to trend across social media as the hero of this operation. Now following that, the pissed-off general, still upset, had to fall back just a little, because an official story was already released and Frenzy was framed as one of the heroes. But just because the public saw Frenzy as a hero didn't mean the general was just going to accept it, because the general immediately ordered Frenzy to be off of her team. Now this was no sweat off of her back at all, so with Frenzy walking away, the liaison had to ask an important question, and that was where the heck did McLeod go? And on the next page, we get the answer to just that, for out at sea, rain started to fall from what was supposed to be a clear sky. And behind the vessel's captain stood McLeod ready to continue in his escape. So with McLeod in the wind, we find out that McLeod was a very important prisoner, but there was still a higher prize secured within the base, and lucky for the general, the big prize wasn't set free. But regardless of this little victory, the general was dead set on conducting an all-hands-on-deck manhunt. So with that said, the general asked where the hell was her team leader. And just like McLeod, we get the answer on the next page, as we see Havok rushing to speak to Polaris. And based off their previous conversation, Polaris wanted to hear nothing from him. But still, Havok called out to her just to talk and say thank you. Now to that, Polaris replied by saying he shouldn't be thanking her, but instead be thanking Frenzy, because she was the one who notified the mutant underground when they came under attack. With Alex always being terrible at reading the room, Alex shot back by saying so Frenzy was the spy the whole time. So with the conversation going south, Polaris was like, forget this, we have to leave. But once again, Havok had another question to ask, and that was how did she survive the last time they saw each other? To which Polaris corrected him and said, no, Havok mean how did she survive his betrayal? Because after Havok fled, after Havok abandoned her to her fate, the mutant wing of the mutant underground moved them. And after a buckstock to the face, Polaris started to pass out, and after a time, she imagined that was the last thing she'd ever see, the faces of those who hated her. And in that moment she thought this is what it must feel like to be Havok. Then following that, she was actually surprised when she woke up and found out their plan was to put them on trial for exposing the mutant underground to an infiltrator. And after they removed their hoods, a mutant introduced himself as Flint and informed them that their trial would start in 1 hour. And let's say this organization was not ready to leave, because the truth about the mutant underground is that they were all amateurs and were new to this. Basically, this group was no Krakoa and had a long way to go if they ever dreamed of running a country, let alone a trial. So as this fake trial continued, Polaris's friend stepped forward and started to tell his story. He stated that he was stationed in the Cave of Names, the official records center of Krakoa. As Krakoa fell, Orcus troops descended on its corpse and the humans came like ants, hoping to carry away Krakoa's most valuable secrets, the identities of every mutant. But even then, at the moment of their destruction, there was one mutant who said no, and that mutant name was Jovius. Now Jovius was a record keeper, and for the crime of refusing to betray his fellow mutants, Jovius lost his life. But what the invaders didn't know was that as a record keeper, Jovius had been equipped with a dead man's switch. He knew there was only one way to keep secrets from falling into human hands, and that was for him to die. Following that, Polaris's friend stated that he didn't know if he would have made the same sacrifice Jovius made to protect his fellow mutants, but all he did know was that for the first time in his life, he felt that he was worthy of protection. Then he went on to say, before this tribunal, he can honestly say that his co-defendant and himself took a chance on Havok for the same reason that they are willing to take a chance on them, because they are willing to die to save their fellow mutants. Now this was when one of the tribunal members exposed just how dumb they really were by asking why should they believe any of what he was saying. And that was because for no other reason because they let them try them at all, because like we all know Polaris's ability is to control magnetism, which means they could have killed them at any moment she wanted to, and as a show of power, Polaris took the X off the wall and placed it to their faces. Because at the end of the day, they could have killed everyone and just walked out, but they choose to abide by their judgment, whatever it may be. And at the end of everything, the mutant underground decided to put them in charge. For everyone, even a resistance group, needs someone to remind them of what they stand for. So as Polaris turned to leave, Havok walked up behind her and said he never stopped loving her, to which she replied by saying she loved him too, but the two of them were traveling in different directions. Now this was something Havok already knew. He just didn't know how to repay her for everything she had done for him, for saving his life. Which Polaris replied by simply saying he could repay her by living. Because the truth is, Havok felt as if he had died. For he died the moment he turned his back on Polaris. Which stands to reason, he supposes. It's the past that usually kills them, the future is just where they are buried. Following that, we jump over to a surprising moment between Cecilia and Pyro. And during this conversation, Pyro showed wisdom beyond what he usually does, for Pyro stated that she will heal in time and forget that this even happened, but in the meantime she just gotta. But before he could finish, he called bullshit on himself and told her the real truth. He told her the truth is that Oscar is gone forever, and with him, a piece of her is gone too. And there is no silver lining, no prize waiting at the end of the suffering. Because when you lose someone, you lose them for good and everything else becomes just rubbish, all except for one thing, the fact that part of you died with them, which means wherever he is now, he will not be alone. Now with that wisdom drop, Cecilia quickly hugged Pyro as Havok walked into the room and told them to come on with him because they were leaving and going home. Now with everything that just went down, Cecilia asked where exactly was that, and with complete honesty, Havok answered, I don't know, but we will find it. And without a bit of remorse, the general stormed into the room and ordered Havok to get what's left of his team and join in on the manhunt for McLeod. But like a true leader, Havok finally stood up for himself and said they just lost someone. Now this was not what the general wanted to hear, because she barked if he'd lose everyone if he didn't follow a direct order. This right here pissed Pyro off because he instantly displayed his fire and asked if this was any way to treat the talent. Now this made the general laugh, because she stated, you think you have skills the US Army couldn't duplicate with $500 billion in battle tech. The X Factor is not here because they are special. The X Factor is here because they are expendable. The whole point of X Factor is to kill a few of you off while taking credit for helping you. So with tension escalating, Pyro told the general if she thinks they are going to hunt down another mutant for her, then she has to be crazy. And like a disconnected general, she tried to order Havok to get control of his team, but see, Havok wasn't about to be used either, especially after just losing someone. Now this sparks the general to call them all traitors and tell Havok if he walks out of this room then he is fired. And like a boss, he replied by saying, do what you have to, General, and he'll do what he should have done all along. And while all this is going on, we get one of Havok's deep narration saying, one of the many useless facts he learned from his time with Polaris is that the word traitor comes from the Latin word tradire. Now tradire means one who hands over, and it came from ancient Rome, from when they would demand that churches hand over their sacred texts. And those who did hand them over were called traitors. And those who didn't were fed to the lions. This means the only way we know the names of the martyrs is because of those who survived. Those who were the traitors are the ones who told the stories. So as Havok took off, his narration continued to say that he didn't know what to do. He just knew that a life spent in fear is a life spent running away from the things he loves the most. So with that said, on the last 2 pages we see the general back on her bullshit, still talking her shit about how she wants Havok to be fired tomorrow. But during this conversation, the liaison points out that it is because of the X Factor that they still have the world's most important mutant. Because deep down, the general knows that it's not that she thinks the X Factor isn't capable of doing their job, it's that she doesn't trust them. And there's nothing more dangerous in the world than a person one can't trust, a traitor. And on the last page, we see Jovius, the former record keeper who once served on Krakoa and knew the name of every mutant alive on Earth, eating his fill of food without a care in the world. And with that said, this issue of X Factor comes to an end. Now down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.